We're here. It's Monday, June 10th.
June 10th. Conrad's birthday was yesterday!
That's right. 2019. 12.
Are you 36 or 37?
Did I turn 36?
No, I'm 37.
No, I'm not 30. Am I? I don't know. Anyway, we'll worry about that later. Yours is coming up too. You old dog, you.
Dude, I didn't know how old you were. I didn't know how old I was.
Dude, you're 35 and you're turning 36 on the 24th.
Are you positive?
Yeah. I mean, you're not.
I thought I was 36.
Jeez. Man. All right, so let's quickly mention that this recording was supposed to be about, we just did our research because we'll be honest right off the bat, we did not do our studies into to talk about the topics we said we were going to talk about this recording, which was number one, why do we seemingly have this inherent device within us that makes us attractive to dramatic situations. And the second topic was what was it again? Oh no, what got you through depression? Like, what was it specifically?
No, I mean, the angle that I wanted to take it, the research that I wanted to do is, why is it so easy for us? Why do we play the victim? You know, why does that seem like it is a go-to mentality? Because when you get out of that, I mean, think about it. When you realize that you play the victim naturally, like it's just natural to have something done to you and be like, oh, I was wronged. For example, if you go into a fast food joint and you don't get the service that you want, or you're entitled to certain things and you don't get them, then you play the victim and you say, oh, I was wronged. Even though, like, there were circumstances where those people were wronged that that got them to there, which made you wrong. And so when you get out of that mindset and you stop being like, woe is me and I'm the victim and this is happening, then you can just carry on.
Yeah. I think we can actually talk about that to some extent today. But okay, so let's talk about that, and then so we'll just make sure that we say that on the next podcast we will on our behalf, we're going to do some research as much as we possibly can on that topic, and to see what the experts say, because we're not experts. The only thing we have is experience. That's it. We're not academics or scholars in any field, so we can only speak through experience. And I think that the only credibility we have is that we're still here and we're better off than we were. So that's our credibility. And I would definitely suggest seek out the academics and the scholars and the experts in those fields and see what they have to say. Because look, I've looked at many and read up on many philosophers or people who have an academic background and have advice in their specific field, but it didn't resonate with me. I only think there's a few specific out there people who they resonate with me. I'm like, yeah, I think I know what they're talking about, I think that what they're saying is working here. So I think a lot of people just babble on and they don't have really much to say. It seems like they're just reiterating what other people said. But anyway, so we'll do that. We promise. So let's talk about that as much as we possibly can through our experience, the victim mentality, and why it is. So what are your thoughts now on it? What are you thinking when you think the victim mentality, and why people fall into it, and why maybe they don't get out? Well, like, what's your observation?
So the reason I wanted to do research on the topic was the specific topic, and the specific research that I wanted to do revolves around why it's so natural for us to play the victim. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are a good majority of people out there that the natural reaction that they have when life is unfair to them in some way, shape, or form, based on their definition of what fair is that they don't react in a mindset of I was wronged. Like how.
So real quick, not sorry to cut you off, but so people who are quick to play the victim mentality in something so menial as not getting the service that you expected at a fast food joint. Now, there's obviously got to be something way deeper underlying than just like I don't get my ways on certain little things. It's very core. There's something way down deep foundationally, right? And so that's what we want to talk about. What's the foundational? What's the setup for it? What's the core cause? And then it just manifests itself in little things because, so well then what to you would be some of the core causes?
So first one, the very first core cause that I would say from my observations personally would be what we talked about, the spotlight effect, this idea that you are at the center of the universe and everybody else is just revolving around you. And the analogy that this is a movie, you are the star and everybody else is just in it. And so that's how you operate. But out of that, I would say like one of the biggest variables or words to describe that mindset is entitlement. So I think we are an entitled, species, and maybe
Hold on a second. You said entitled species. Now, are you talking back to our beginning stages of evolution, or the human evolution, or are you talking about more modern, like in the past, let's just say 2,000 years? Oh, you're not talking tens of thousands of years ago. You're okay.
I think it's conditioned. I think it's. Right. I think this society that we're in is
like the worst.
And like the book that I'm reading, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, like has brought a lot of things to my attention, and basically, like you and I were raised at the cusp of our parents. Like we had parents that were like, dude, you fell down, get up. Instead of parents that are like, either A, I'm not going to let you fall down, or, like, I'm not going to let you ride a bike because you could get hurt, or B, I'm going to let you ride a bike on a matted area with helmets, knee pads, elbow pads, so that if and when you do fall, you don't get hurt, or C, well, I don't know if there's another option to that scenario, but C, like what we had is like, all right, here's where your bike is. Go out and, we don't even know if there's helmets. Like, just go have fun. And when you fall down, get up. And now everybody, it just seems like what this book points out and what I see is that everybody is so offended. If you say something the wrong way, you offend somebody. And, from my experience, just from my personal experience, so I can't put this on everybody, it didn't seem to be like that when I was growing up. Like, especially with bullying, and bullying is a very fine and thin line of what is bullying and what is just boys being boys and girls being girls, Like, I would never want to make light of a situation where there's bullying going on because it's never okay. Like, it is not okay to bully. But when we grew up, man, gosh, like that's what I've been working through with therapy and with just everything that's happened to me. Like, why am I the way I am? Like, why am I so sarcastic? And why do I use like put down humor to like avoid things or to come back at certain things? And I just look back at my past and I look at like that was a defense mechanism. I mean, I got made fun of by my two older brothers and then all of their friends and then other people in school like crazy. But it was normal. That was just how it was. I can't remember. I probably did, but I can't remember ever going to my mom or dad and being like, crying like, oh, they're making fun of me or they're being mean to me. Yeah. Like, that was it. Like they said mean things to me that were, hurtful and true. Like they made fun of my teeth or hygiene or, my attire. And they were objective, like, observations that they made based on what I did. And so my natural comeback, just me, was, hey, let's outsmart them. Let's first of all, let's make fun of myself so they can't do that, and then turn it back on them. And so anyway, it seems like now we've conditioned ourselves to be more of a sensitive people that are entitled. So when I said entitled species, I meant like the Americans that I see, the generation that I see in front of me and hear about in the news and observe on a day-to-day basis. Now, like you said, man, the only thing that we have is our experience as far as you and I are concerned. I mean, I'm not doing worldwide research on statistics and find out how people are reacting. I'm just making a very, generic observation based on what I see. And so I would say entitlement is a huge deal or huge variable to victimization and it being natural. Like if you go, so a couple episodes ago, or maybe last episode, we talked about this idea of not expecting certain things, like not to lower your expectations and just, be all willy-nilly and be like, okay, whatever. But, I have done this multiple times consciously since we've talked about it and gone into the store and they not have the donut that I want. It's a very particular donut, that this gas station gets. They get like 5 different styles of donuts from one company. And there's one particular one that I like. It's the only one that I like. And it's a cinnamon twist one. And it's all the BP gas stations. And so I go in there now and I know this is a tangent, but it's so funny to think about the law of attraction and, the focus you put on it coupled with not expecting, like to go in there and hope for a donut to be there, but not expect one or have the negative attitude when it's not there. Yeah. So anyway, so that's what I couple that scenario in, or that example in, with being the victim. Like me going in there. Okay, this is a real scenario. This happens to probably all of us, all the time throughout our day. We go in and let's just say we wake up and we're having a not so great day. Like it's starting to go south already. It's like early in the morning. You thought you had folded socks and matched, and you don't have matched socks. And now you have to find some matches in your socks. And so now you're a little upset, but not super upset. And then you go out and you realize that your car's on empty. And you're like, dang it, I thought I had enough gas to not have to fill up before work, so now I'm going to be late. So those two little things just, they can make your day go from being great to like, oh, this is a miserable day, like screw this. So then you go in and you want your donut, and it's going to make everything all right. Like it's going to just smooth everything over. And then you don't get it. And my first reaction in that scenario could be, dude, God, what's up, man? Like, what's going on? Like, why me? Like, why is the world against me right now? Like, everything's coming against me, you know? And I'm probably going to hit every red light on the way in and all this stuff. As opposed to, like, that's a victim. Like, that's a victim mentality. Like, something is out to get me. And I'm the one that has been victimized. Because this company didn't have enough donuts here for me, you know?
Yeah.
Whatever. And so that whole scenario is my example of how it's natural for us to play the victim, and we can play in areas where we don't deserve to. Like, I don't get to play the victim in that. You know, I don't think that's justified. I think there are some areas where, you know, maybe our children are taken advantage of, molested or raped or murdered, or, you know, whatever, like, bad thing happens that's out of our control. And in that case, we are the victims, or you know, we know people that are victims. But even then, my point in all of this is that until we get out of the victim, playing the victim or being the victim,
Yes.
we're not going to have total freedom.
Yes. Yeah, I was thinking about that, how we're hypersensitive now, and I think, look, if you're a child and you fall down and you look to your parents to gauge what your reaction should be, and your parents, the mom runs, "Oh my gosh, sweetie, are you okay?" And the kid starts crying because he's like, "Okay, she's giving me the energy that I need to be giving back to her," and so when you're the father or mother who the kid falls and you laugh and the kid's like, gets up and starts laughing. See, now that's saying, look, man, the kid's gonna grow up thinking that nothing's a big deal, really. It's like, just
okay to fall.
It's okay to fall, but dust yourself off, get back up, and just keep going. You know, that keep going mentality. Because, gosh, I don't know. It's almost as if just we have this thing built in within us that already tells us that everything's going to be okay. There's no need to get so hung up on one thing for so long and let it destroy your life. And I think what it is, so you have that on a parental level, just with the parents and a child. But what about a societal level, when society says, "Hey, look, you're being, this and this is happening to you. You have, you deserve the rights. You're entitled to a way of being that you can be extremely sensitive about that." And man, we're gonna make it so that if somebody comes against that, we could come against them by law.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, great. Now nobody can mess with me. I can totally just react emotionally to any way I want to anything, and play a victim, or make sure that I set up barriers so that nobody can mess with that thing that I protect so well, or that I want to be protected so well. And so, but that's just a result of creating. I mean, look, that's not to say that we need to be extremely insensitive to people and what they're going through, because everybody's going through different certain things. But I think it's a result of too much license to be hypersensitive. Like today, I was playing disc golf with a few guys, and there was like 3 14-year-old kids there, you know, and they're all boys. And man, me and the other guy there, we're adults, and so we create an atmosphere that's kind of like rough and tumble play, as kids are supposed to experience when they're really young. Like, you got to be able to mess around, do some wrestling, and just to kind of like let you know that it's okay to get beat up a little bit, and to beat somebody else up a little bit, not in any negative way, but just to have that, yeah, roughhousing. And so, you know, we were making fun of somebody who had a bad throw, but it wasn't like the person was like, "Oh man, this sucks, man. Like, they're making fun of me. I'm getting out of here. I'm gonna go buy a machete and chop people up now." It's like, it's okay, it's like, hey, this, but then we made fun of this guy, and now this guy knows, hey, it's okay because they made fun of me. Now they're making fun of him, and it's all okay. So, um, that kind of makes you a little bit, toughens you up, and so I think that's the thing, man. We're allowing, or have allowed, and continue to allow, just people to be very encapsulated in this nice little blanket of just way too much sensitive, um, or way too much comfort, way too much protection that's doesn't really exist and shouldn't exist, man. You got to be a little hard. So,
Well, I was just going to ask you. I mean, this is like not necessarily contrary to everything that I'm saying and what you said, but more like curious. What like I don't think there's an objective truth. There's not one answer that's an end all be all. I think it's you have to apply. Everybody has to apply the answer in different scenarios, but like, where is that line between some kid having a bad throw and you not saying anything negative, about the throw because of what it might do to his psyche, like feeling bullied or put down, or like, oh my gosh, all humiliated, like any negative emotion. Some 12-year-old kid throws a frisbee and he's with his peers and two other kids, and everybody's like ganging up on him, and like in a fun way, like,
yeah.
Hey, like, like, oh, look at me, I'm John, I just threw it just like him, and oh my gosh, where were you throwing, man? The hole's over there. Just doing fun stuff. Like, where's the line where it's like okay to do that, but then it's not because you've taken it too far. Yeah. And maybe not even in that scenario, but in other scenarios. And like my first reaction to that question, because I don't know the answer, is that it's case by case. Like, you have to know who you're dealing with, right? Because like, if you didn't know that person at all, you might not be okay to make fun of them. Yes. Because you don't know what his past is or her past is and how it may affect him. If you know him real well and you know that this isn't going to have any ill effect on him, then you have a little bit more license to go a little deeper to have fun with them.
Yeah, you can gauge that. I mean, first off, if you're the person doing the, like, cracking jokes, teasing, you need to be able to gauge that. Mm-hmm. You have to have the ability to gauge it, and I think you learn that as well from growing up and being exposed to the environments. You need to have some kind of sort of empathy. You need to be able to understand what the person's feeling, and so you can't be totally callous and not give a rat's behind about what people think and feel. Yeah. So you gauge it, and then so I would say for the other person, it's like, dude, find your line, man. Every individual has to find that line. It's like, okay, look, I know when I get offended, and I know when I'm not offended. I know when I'm overly sensitive or not. But you have to find the line, and then how do you find it? You got to go out and live in the world, and just get beat up a little bit and beat other people up. Of course, I don't mean physically. I mean just emotionally. Just go out there and push some buttons. You gotta mess around and see, like, okay, where's the line being crossed, where it's not, and you can't do that. You don't go out perfect. You have to kind of find the line on your own. And so, see, the problem is, it's people go out with this certain expectation, like this protective barrier, like, I'm protected, and if anybody crosses that barrier, then they're gonna pay because I got society and the law on my back, and I'm protected. It's like, dude, you're not. Like, you're protected by an ideology, but not reality. So find the line and go in knowing that it's gonna be okay. You're gonna get made fun of, beat up, or things aren't going to work out the way you think, or you're not going to get accepted into places you thought you could get accepted or be a part of a group or something. But find it out and don't let it destroy your life. It's going to be okay. You know, keep going out there.
Well, it's interesting. Like, so with two young children, 7 and 9, and then everything that we learned from Bruce Lipton and have been learning. God, I just feel like our school system isn't doing a great job of teaching things that are practical for life, at the age that they get kids, like elementary school and pre-K. Man, those are years that you could really make or break a child. Yeah. I mean, more so than any other years in their life, they are so, adaptable. And you think about the things that we're talking about, and it's like your answer was spot on, and it was the way I was thinking about it is it's two-part. A, the person, one, who's teasing has to know his place, the context. And person B, the one being teased, has to know. The TZ. Yeah, the TZ has to know how to communicate effectively. And we don't teach that in school. Like,
let me jump in real quick. Dude, when we were growing up, you know what protected us? The ability to come back at somebody. It's like, dude, I remember times where we were all hanging out and somebody would make fun of somebody and then somebody would crack a joke back. It's like, you can't. So you retaliate, but in a positive way. So the other person is like, okay, like, yeah. I know that I can get made fun of too. So, and I remember everybody did that towards each other. And it got to the point where it was just funny. And then we're like, oh, okay, everybody got into their place. And yeah. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. And I agree with that. And we learned how to deal with life, by experience. But at a young age, I don't think it's taught. And I know I didn't really do a great job of teaching my kids this, and that's why these conversations are so beneficial. I mean, I'm like literally learning things right now. I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to teach that to my little kids. And this idea to be able to say from a young age, hey, I don't like the way that you're talking to me, and any way that you can formulate that in words, maybe not in that way, but like, hey, what you just said made me feel this way. And then the other person A, then gets to again decide how to receive what person B said. Like one of the coolest quotes that I read a while back, years ago, maybe like 6 years ago, was, if somebody says that you hurt them, you don't get to decide if you did. Okay? So like if I say, hey man, what you said offended me, you don't get to decide whether or not it offended me. You can sit there and say, well, it shouldn't have. Or, okay, it did, and I see that. The point is, it did offend me. Now, what are you going to do about it? And then it's in your, the ball's in your court to say, okay, well, whoa, Miss Sensitive over there, let me apologize even though I don't feel I'm in the wrong. Or let me say, well, screw you, grow some backbone. But either way, it doesn't take much for somebody to say, hey, you've hurt my feelings. Like what you said, you don't understand this, but like that hurts my feelings because these clothes that I have on, they're all my parents can afford. So even though you're like just joking about how I have stains on my, on my shirt, like I just want you to know that hurts my feelings because my parents can't afford any new shirts. You didn't know that. Now you do. I mean, it's so easy to communicate that, but we're not taught how to do that, And I get people have different, such different and complex personalities, and some people have a bent to just store everything in and compress it until it's too late, and then they're blowing up. and other people have the opposite, and they just express everything. So it's just interesting because it's like, man, how can we teach that at an elementary level of how to, you know, deal with feelings and with emotions. Yeah. And, real quick, I'll just add this and we can piggyback off this is like, my 8-year-old or my 9-year-old son is like one of the only, well, that's not true, but he has expressed bullying since a very young age in school. I mean, he's only in 3rd grade right now, and I think since 1st grade, he's like expressed this idea of being bullied, like people making fun of him for certain things, whatever. And, you can't explain how that crushes you as a parent. Like when your own kid is feeling bullied, like you want to just hug them, and just say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." But at the same point, you want to be like, "Well, listen, dude, kids are mean. Like, like people are going to say mean things, man. Like you're not always like one of the things that I always had to battle with is like my son feels left out in certain things. Like he thinks that people don't want to play with him, that they want to exclude him from games. And he was going to a school where that was the farthest thing from the case. Like the teacher actually implemented a rule from the beginning of the school year where if a student wanted to play with you, you couldn't say no. So if me and you were playing Legos and somebody else said, "Hey, can I play with you guys?" we had to say yes. Yeah. And so it was just this inclusive, like include everybody, but also we brought it up to the teacher early on and said, "Hey, our son feels this way. Can you just keep an eye out?" And she was like, "No, that's not the case." And I've assigned him a buddy. So I've assigned him a buddy in the class so that they, whenever we do extracurriculars or whatever, they hang out together. And he still, had these complaints. And when I would go to the school and eat lunch with him, which I would do at least 4 times a month, once a week, he was one of the most popular kids in class. Like when we went out to recess, everybody wanted to include him in on these games. So anyway, my point is like, as a parent, there's this difficulty of balancing like, hey man, like kids are mean, like people are cruel, deal with it. If you feel that way, I'm sorry, but like you said, like that's life. Like you have to get out. Like life's gonna be hard. Like you might be 30 years old and walking down the street and somebody yell out their window, "Hey, you douche, like you look like a, blah, blah, blah." You just have to deal with that. And so like there's that tough balance between.
It's funny because when you look at stuff at that level, then you think about the things we've been talking about, feeling certain emotions and emitting emotions and
omitting,
emitting, like
producing.
Yeah, like the vibe you put out. Let's just say, and using other terms, and so when let's just take a subject, like a example. Somebody's just going through school and they're bullied, and for whatever reason, man, they let it get to them. Maybe there wasn't a figure at home that showed them how to kind of retaliate or punch back. Somebody says something, you punch back. You don't let it get to you. You just punch back, and that's it. But if let's just say you grew up with let's just say there's a child who grew up with a very like timid father. Remember that movie Back to the Future? Yeah. I don't remember that movie well, but I do remember the scenes where I forget the guy's name, but he's super timid and he ends up like growing up to be, or he had a really timid father, and then he grew up to be very timid, and it all made sense. It's because we're just really who our parents were,
Yeah.
you know, and it's kind of lame because you grow up and you're just like you have to go through the same crap your dad did, or a daughter has to go the same way their mom did. And I man, school is so messed up because it's like here's a bunch of kids you have to throw together in this place, and they're growing up, they don't know anything. And you can look at it two ways, man. Either school is really great because you're rubbing elbows with people from all kinds of walks.
Yeah, that was the first thing I thought of. Like when
Yeah.
you said that, is like
Yeah.
kind of forces you to
Yeah.
be in situations you don't like.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then on the other hand, it's really sucky because you're forced to be in situations you don't like.
Yeah.
So,
With mean people.
yeah, with mean people. So, you're either going to God, see, the awful thing about school is that you're too young to realize, like, hey, man, I don't gotta be. I can change. You know, I don't have to. If you're somebody who's extremely offended and super sensitive, and then you go your whole school years like that, you know, that really sucks. But when you're that young, you're not sit there at like 8 years old going, you know what? I can really change my thinking, and it all just takes like if I just think about certain uh, uh, neurological things are going on. If I can understand that and and I look at it, you just don't get that. So you have to be just this subject in the situation. It's just an experience that you have to get through, and for a lot of people, it really really sucks. But excuse me, the the really sucky part about it is that you don't ever emotionally mature. You're still the same person at 40 as you were when you were 8. You know, somebody who's like either really timid all the time, or you feel like you're inadequate, or you think you're stupid, and so you go your whole life saying, I'm just stupid, man, and I'm just gonna do dumb things because that's just how I've been, and that's how it's always gonna be, and that's so awful. So, but I think it's parenting, man. It's the experience. It's so much. You know, we talked about like what's the line on like how far you can push somebody. Well, it's like how many different variations that are necessary in order to, or how many different variables are required to make somebody know that they can change or not have to constantly go back to the way they were, like thinking patterns. I have a friend who went through a pretty traumatic experience when he was younger. He got attacked, and he just recently got approached by a few police officers who were asking about that person because he's been consecutively going through situations that either land him in prison, and this happened like 25 years ago. So it's like still to this day, this person is the same person, but not in a good way. Like he's just messing up all the time. He's always landing himself in prison and doing things that the cops are constantly pulling him over and bothering him. But you know what, man? Look, the beauty part is that no matter what you went through in those times, you can change it. It gets harder because if you're not exposed to certain information, then you think that's it, like that's your existence.
Yeah.
But you have to come into that knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
You have to come into all the awareness, like the things we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's like, I mean, there's so many variables, and you listen to people like Jordan Peterson, all these psychologists who try to push so much psychology into it, and it's like this is what you need to do to raise your kid perfect. You need to do this, and if this happens, this, and then everybody's all messed up. And there's so much, man. There's so much to it, but I think that one of the key things is this: learn how to toughen up. You know, like learn how to get beat up and learn how to beat up. And again, I don't mean that in any bullying way. I mean just with your emotional resilience and what you give and what you take. Like learn how to be tough. And also look at like the bigger picture. You know, look at like, for example, we talked about this, right? Like somebody who's somebody who's like we talked about this on our trip a couple weeks ago. Somebody who's going through like either a criminal who has like a criminal mind or somebody who maybe feel like the world's against them. It's like throw them out in nature.
Yeah.
Like go live in a cabin for a year somewhere where you don't have no access to people and just like realize what's important because then you realize that people's emotions will affect you less. Either that or you'll die of starvation. But honestly, it's like it's a. I think the simplest way to describe, or the reason why people are in these super bad emotional states is because it's just a lack of awareness. It's a lack of what's bigger out there, you know? Some people take off, man. They do things and they figure it out, but some people get cocooned and then they die like that. And it's just, you didn't get exposed to what you need to get exposed to.
Yeah. I mean, just like, not to get into this topic, but do you feel and like at your core being that we're in an age of an awakening?
You know,
Pertaining to what you just said, awareness.
well, if it seems to me that it's like this, when you're in a circumstance, you feel like the rest of the world is suffering from that circumstance or going through the same circumstance. But that's just because it's you. You know how like when we say,
Yeah.
"Oh, most people da da da." It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
well, you never talk to most people. You don't know. Like you listen to channel,
Yeah.
you know. So
I do.
I think it's this, man. I think that I don't necessarily think so. I went through I went through a period where I started being exposed to really interesting things. So through my own will, I started to become aware of what really is knowledge that's been around for a very long time. It's nothing really new. It's just that I allowed myself to be aware and just in that awareness that opening up allows that information to come in.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really foresee like a global awakening or it's like this big events happening. I don't really believe that. I think that um I mean you can read stories from hundreds of years ago, even thousands of years ago. It seems as if there were people who were suffering really badly and there was those who were not suffering so much. There were those who weren't enlightened and then there were some who were enlightened, and I think it's just, man, it's your will, because I think, Tom, that the information already exists. There's nothing new. Look, we discover things that are technologically new. We're going to come out with the next phone that's going to teleport your car for you. Like we're going to do all that, and that's going to seem like, what's that?
Not based on anything new.
Right. And so
Stuff's already here.
yes, and so I feel like there's this like constant feeling of like and I mean this by the world that I observe like publicly. I feel like the world has this energy about it that's like, hey man, we're getting to the finish line. Like there's something in the future that we're getting to, and man, it's gonna be, ooh, you better watch out for it because it's gonna be it. You know, it's like I don't think that's it. I think, look, I believe in an afterlife. I mean, look, I don't know much about it. I don't think that I have the capacity to fully understand what happens after we physically die. I don't know. Yeah. It could be something incredible, or it could be something that's just like, I don't know. I just don't know. But I do really feel this, that we're kind of already in a perfect state. I feel that, and I don't.
Individually or corporately?
Well, no, not corporately. I mean, I feel like the ability, being in a perfect state already exists. Yeah. You know, it's already out there. Yeah. It's just, man. Yes, and if it's like, if you're not seeking it, you're not going to find it, and you're going to remain in this world that is everything that you. What's that?
I was going to say manifested to be.
Yeah, or that's just like. Look, the world that's created through just the crap that's out there, you're just going to be a total victim of it. You know, you're going to be a very, what they call, worldly person. Just the news is going to affect you, and you're going to be up to date with what's going on, and this is going to affect you, and this government law is going to affect you, and that's just going to be your life. You're going to be so like, you're just getting pushed about the worldly way of things, and that's your existence, and you completely, and you are total in submission to it, and you comply with everything, and that's just life, man. You know, that's just the way it is. But I don't, that's your choice. And so but that's all about awareness. And I think that people who either go off to do great things or leave society and do their own thing, they're the ones who are like, you know what? And here's what's scary. I can really do whatever I want to do, and within the limits that are available to me. And I think those limits go very far. I really think they do. Because if you take a minute and you start to ponder the universe, you're like, when was the last time you like got on Google, like, when was the last time you stopped and like looked at the moon for an hour, or really ponder, not coming against it, I'm just saying like generally, it's like anybody, when was the last time you were just like, man, like what's out there, man? Like, what is all that? Yeah. Because I think we get to the point where it's like, I can't conceptualize it, man. It's just too big for me to even ponder, so why even bother? Like, let me go focus on the little things in my life. But I think that the information is out there only, and it'll only be revealed to you if you seek it. And look, man, what do you think Christ meant when he said, seek ye forth the kingdom of heaven, and all else will be added unto you? I mean, forget the all else part, but what's the seek ye first the kingdom of heaven? Like, what is that? And it's just like, it's just something he said, and let's just go to church and pray, and then we'll go eat breakfast somewhere real quick, because that's just our day. But it's like, man, I think that if you, as an individual, if you really wanted to know what Christ meant and what that really means, what God means with that, you'll find the answer. Yeah. But you have to press in, and you have to really want it. And so I think that's it.
So, yeah, I mean, that's... As I was listening to you, that was a consistent theme that I kept thinking about is, okay, awareness. Like, awareness has been something that you've been saying, over and over. And hopefully it's been from day one of our platform, and will continue through, because awareness is paramount to like what we're talking about. But people can't become aware on their own necessarily, like sometimes it takes something outside of yourself to like shake you up.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And then the second thing that I was thinking about more specifically when you were talking is this idea, and you said it, is that like this knowledge is out there if you seek it. Mm-hmm. But it's coupled with the awareness, because if you aren't aware, then you won't seek. Yes. And then if you're not aware that you need to seek, or that you should be seeking, you don't seek. Yes. And so the two, like, I mean, sometimes like I could see it, I could conjure up a scenario where the seeking comes like and hits you in the head when you're not aware, and then you become aware, because it's like, which came first, the egg or the chicken? But the question that I have is like, how do we wake people up? Like, how do we make them aware?
The question is, how do you wake yourself up? Like, or do you feel like you're fully awake?
Well, no. I mean, I feel like I am aware of me not being aware. And I
think that's a really good thing, because
that's the start. Now it becomes, okay, I'm aware that I'm not aware. What do I want to be aware of? Because I can't be aware of everything, right? Like right now, I want to be aware of things that pertain to my mental health, my spiritual health, my emotional health. Like, I know that eventually I want to do, physical. Like, I want to really get involved in things that are going to make me physically healthy and financially wealthy, but right now, like, and so now that I know what I want to be aware of, then I can go seek that, and both you and I, it all is a trail of the kingdom of heaven. But there are people that, I was just talking to a friend the other day and was talking to her about these kind of things. And she said something like, I feel like you have to believe in a higher something to get to a certain place. And it was contextual, And I was like, well, listen, I just want you to know, I mean, she knows where I stand with Jesus, She knows where I stand with Christianity and all that. And my thing was look, just so you know, there are plenty of non-Christians that are seeking truth and finding objective truth outside of the terminology of Christ and Christianity. So I think it all leads back to Christ, and that's why it's okay, just go seek and you'll get there. I don't have to tell you you got to start with Christ or funnel you through that way. But it's man, there are plenty of wealthy people. There are plenty of healthy people. There are plenty of smart people and, whatever you want to put in there that don't believe in Jesus Christ. And so this truth that we're seeking, that we're talking about is objective. It's true. It is true. It's just truth, Yes. And I believe, and I know you do too, that Christ is at the center of all that, and so it's for us, it's easier. I feel like the path is easier to seek the kingdom of heaven and what he meant by that. Yes. And then all else will, be added unto you, as opposed to going these different routes and then ending up there. But my point was that if I truly believe that if you seek truth, you'll find it. Yes. It's just, man, I hear some crazy stories, and that's why we don't have to be so vigilant, with our, promotion of Christ, because he is, he is everything that he says he is. He's real. Man, just if you want to seek truth, go seek it, and he'll let you find him.
Yes. I'm trying to think of that scripture where it's the one where it says, if you are my disciples indeed, then you will know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. So yeah, it's seeking truth, man. When you're seeking God, you're seeking something that already exists. It's the eternal, and that's the Alpha and the Omega. That's the beginning and the end. It's eternal. That doesn't change. And so that's why I don't get on that roller coaster ride, that linear ride where it's the end's up there, man, we're gonna find it. See, to me, it already, and that's what I meant by I think we already have the paradise. I think that's what I meant. Yeah. Is that it's God. It's God's always here. Mm-hmm. And people who don't believe in God, who are either don't know that they don't believe in God, or that they're not aware, or if they even admit that they're atheists, then that's the spirit, that's the mind that's trying to find truths to land on for a foundation. Because if you don't have something to land on, a core or an anchor, then you'll go insane. Yeah. And it won't be long before what you think is the ultimate truth eventually crumbles away. And so now it's okay, I need another platform to hop on. Okay, how about this? Yeah. And so you're constantly striving for that truth. And maybe you don't use that term, but you're just it's what gets you through the next day? What is it? What are you thinking? And then people might have, I know that one way to get you through the next day is this idea of yourself, of that, the idea of how you're going to be in the future. And so people are running towards the goals. It's okay, I know that I'm gonna get there when this is complete, and I have this. Then that's it, man. I made it, and I'll have won the rat race or have won the human race that I think that we're all really in. But man, you're that's all in your own head. That's your perspective. Think it. You're running a race where you think everybody's involved because you have this view that everybody's involved in what you're involved in. And that's the lie, though, because you watch TV and you read the newspaper that everybody's reading, and then you're thinking the way everybody else is thinking, and so you just don't know. Like, man, you got no clue what else is out there. It's like your knowledge is so limited, but that's the number. I think that's a really good awareness, is to say to yourself, dude, I'm so aware. I'm so aware that I know so little, and so I think that's the first kind of door starts to open.
And here's the thing about that is even the smartest people will tell you the more I know, the more I realize I don't know. It's like a rabbit hole, man. It's oh my gosh, I was going down this path of knowledge, and I'm screwed because the farther I go towards the knowledge, the more I realize that I don't know. It's so crazy. But look, I just to end things time-wise, one of my last thoughts is this, based on what you just said too, is I just saw the new remake of Aladdin yesterday, and the premise is you got this boy that wants something, he finds a genie that can give him anything three times, and this genie's been around for centuries, since the beginning, and so he's seen it all. And man, we're talking about wisdom and what that is, and how it's a feeling not, or a thought not attached to a feeling or something. Forget. Yeah. You remember.
It's a wisdom is experience without the emotion attached. Or
yeah, something like, or not the experience, because you can't have.
I thought you said wisdom is experience. I thought you said wisdom is experience without the emotion attached.
Well, no, because wisdom, I think, is future based. Based on something in the future, which then excludes experience.
Oh, I didn't realize that wisdom was used in the context of because. So you're more thinking like prophetic, like somebody who can like foresight.
Well, no, wisdom, not doing something because even though you feel that it's going to be good, that it's not. It's all.
So you mean like intuition? Go ahead, finish your thought, because I don't want to get too stuck on that.
But anyway, we're talking about what wisdom is, like in this case, hearing somebody else's experiences and not necessarily feeling them, but believing them and then applying them. And so it's just so interesting because based on what you just said, we know from history, from our own history, that that's not the case. That once this happens and this happens and this happens, then you're going to be perfect. That you're going to feel complete.
Arrived.
Yes. It's just, man, it's just not. And in Aladdin, you've got this kid, and he thinks, if I have this and I have this, I'll get this. And when I get this, I will be who I want to be. Yes. And you've got this, prophetic, genie that can grant everything, that's seen everything, and saying, look, kid, I really like you, and it doesn't work like that. I've seen it over and over and over again, and I can give you this, and then I can give you that, but you're not going to be who you think you're going to be. Oh, I'm different, right? I'm not like the other people. Right. I've heard that one before, And it's it's so true, man. If you can't be whole right now,
yes, you're screwed.
Then you're screwed.
Yeah.
If you can't figure out how to be whole,
yes,
and content right now with where you are,
yes,
then you're missing something. Yeah. And, I'll just paint a picture for you and the viewers, all two of them. Hey, is I have 3 jobs going on right now where I need to almost be 3 different places at the same time for the whole duration of the jobs. Or the other scenario would be have people there knowing what they're doing that can be there. And I don't have either of those right now. I don't have the manpower to have 3 people at 3 jobs that know what they're doing and can carry on. And there is a hierarchy and a priority with all of them, but they're all very pressing. And even like 2 to 5 minutes ago, mid recording, I thought to myself, oh crap, I have that problem I have to deal with after this. Like I've got to think about tomorrow. And then I just thought, okay, like I can't do anything about you now. Like you want me to be present. And the point is, like, as I was saying, if you can't be content now, if you can't be like whole right now, and I thought about that as I was saying it, I was like, well, I got a lot of things going on right now that, like, if this wasn't going on, I'd feel better about myself. And it's like, no, like, how can I be saying this and then not do it? And the thing is, like, you like, some things you get yourself into, right? Some things happen because unfortunate circumstances. Like, this is a combination of both, because we've had bad weather and I've promised things that I shouldn't have promised. I should have just been like, no, I'm sorry. So now I'm at the point where I'm like, now I got to be like, no, I'm sorry. I said this. I can't do it. I'm sorry, I can't do that. But we will once this is done. And so that is a very practical way of how you can be whole with your situations, is realizing that you can only do what you can do, and to be honest and to be upfront and to address those things, instead of being like, well, once this is over, then I can be whole. And then you're never going to be whole. Yeah, never. It's not ever going to happen.
Yeah, because it repeats.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be, it's like, the only time to ever avoid that is just to lay down and not do anything ever.
Yeah.
So, I had a thought.
That would be awesome, by the way.
What? Lay down, not do anything?
Never.
And that's what people see. There's so many. I've heard a lot of people say things like, "Oh, I wish I could just be on a beach right now, somewhere," and things. Okay, go do it, because then it won't be long before you get bored. You're gonna have to do something. You're gonna feel like a purposeless just meat sack. So that's just like people. That's just like your mind, man. You fix it, like fix that bad thinking, because you're always like grass is greener somewhere else, and you never want to be where you are, and that's just not good for you. But
take care of your own grass.
Yes, and so
what were you gonna say?
When you were talking about the thinking thing, like
look at you getting all cozy.
I'm not gonna fight it, man. It's like, it's cool.
Just be content where
you are. I'm not gonna, so I mean, this is kind of going back to what we were talking about before. So, you ever heard that expression? Don't be careful what you wish. Be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. Now, I don't really understand what whoever said that, what they exactly meant, like in what context. But I feel like one of the things that means to me is, be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. The ones who strive for things, that think that that's where they need to be to make them like feel like they've arrived, be careful, because if you get it, then you'll think that you finally got that thing that you think you needed to be that whole person, even though you may not use that term whole, but like you feel like you've got there, because if it's stripped away, then you've attached all value, so much value to that thing, that if it were to be eliminated some way, then you're really screwed, because the thing that you thought you needed for a solid foundation or wholeness or whatever it is that you think you needed it for, um, completely controls your life. Yeah. So, and real quick, I want to make one more comment about the whole. If you're somebody who isn't an acknowledger of God or a seeker of God, then you're forced to be wrapped up in your own thinking and the thinking of others, and so it's a mental thing. And so you start to get into things like psychology, and you start to really go down that rabbit hole. And look, it's fun to do. You can do that and come to a lot of really great conclusions and understanding, and you might be able to make sense of a lot of things that are going on in the world, especially with people's, particularly with people's behavior and how the world functions. But look, that doesn't work, because the idea behind like psychological thinking is that you think that you're constantly arriving to solid truths, like factual conclusions that are going to eventually amount to some like ultimate truth, which you go down rabbit holes. And you look at somebody like Friedrich Nietzsche, look how he ended up. He went insane. And this was somebody who was brilliant minded and had these great things to say and made all these wonderful observations. And you got to say, well, gosh, well, how smart were you that your own self led you to end up in a crazy house, where he was like blurting all these weird things out, and the letters he was writing to some people, there was like, what's this guy saying? And they weren't utterances of a whole person. Yeah. And so, look, man, I went down a lot of mental thinking. Like, you just you got to arrive to the next thing of truth that. And so you hold on to it, and you're like, yes, like that's it, like that's how the world is and functions, and it gets you along for a few more days or weeks or even years, but you run out again, and so you're always running down a thing. And dude, so that's when I realized, okay, it's God. Like, I arrived to the conclusion that of God, like I arrived to the truth, man. Yeah. Because. And it may sound like, oh, this dude just like gave up on the thinking. It's like, no, that's not it, man. Because you will never. I think that it's all about the ultimate thing is how you are as a being, like how you are feeling in your wholeness and your spirit. And so, if you use the mental, if you're trying to figure everything out mentally, then you're not going to get it. You're not going to get that feeling of wholeness. And so...
Yeah, because we're spiritual beings.
Yeah, we're spiritual beings made by a creator, and there's a God that's present, the Alpha and the Omega, that has been at the beginning, will be, and you got to eventually acknowledge that. Because if not... And here's what's interesting. I'll finish with this, and you can give your thought, and I'll be done. Here's the thing. That wasn't, and I don't care what anybody says, man, I'll argue this for the rest of my day. That was purposely placed here. Our ability to understand that knowledge. Like, that's not something that we created. We didn't create that. We didn't invent it. Mm-hmm. It's always been here. And I think it's God's will that everybody reaches that point to acknowledge God and to live with God and to be have His presence and to be aware of Him, and that exists, man. Like, that is not something that we created, that we've created through evolution. It's always been there, and it's purposeful, and it's with very specific intent. It's not like this thing that just suddenly kind of happened or might have manifested through years of whatever. It's always been there. And I think, yes, very intentional, extremely intentional. So I'm finishing with that, but go ahead and finish your last words.
No, I mean, the last thing I was going to say was Jesus, at the well was like, hey, if you take a drink from me, you'll never be thirsty. You know?
Come on, does that not encompass like everything
Yeah.
in one sentence?
Uh-huh.
In one sentence, and it
Yeah.
encompasses so much. But you read it.
Everything you just said. Everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, dude, you keep trying to fill up on all this other crap, and you're gonna just keep going hungry. He's like, take a drink from the living water, from the living well, from me. Yeah. You will never thirst again.
And if you don't like know what that means, you read it, you're just kind of like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
But But you
didn't get it.
Yeah, and she didn't get it. But we have that thing within us that can eventually lead us to get it. That's already within us. We don't have to acquire anything else. But that's awesome, dude. I love that. Say it again.
I don't know how it's said specifically, but he's like, if you take a drink from me, the living water, and you'll never be thirsty again.
Yeah, dude. Amen to that. Well, awesome. We done?
Do you want me to look it up? Do you have anything to say while I look up this?
Yeah, look it up. But so we're gonna have more platform episodes, and we're gonna go through its evolution, and man, God will lead to whatever it needs to be. And I feel like I have some ideas of what it needs to become and where it's headed. But so we can play the psychological games or not games, but talk about these things and try to come to understandings of certain things through just normal with our mental understanding and our mental capacities and whatnot. But it eventually just leads to the Spirit and God and all that. So, I mean, that's going to be something that we're going to keep saying. But anyway, what's the verse?
John 4:13 actually through 14. Jesus said to her, everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks of the water that I will give him will never be thirsty again. The water that I will give him will become in him a spring of water, welling up to eternal life.
So good. Ponder that. I mean, what is that? What's that saying? There's weight. It's so deep. It's ridiculous. But anyway, praise God, man.
Praise God.
We'll see you next time. Yeah, bye.